What do horror movies, soap operas, and porn all have in common? More than you might think. Hi, I'm Jenna. I have a master's degree in media and culture, and I've spent years studying horror media and video game cultures, which is why I'm here to talk to you about melodramas and hardcore porn. And horror, because all three of these styles overlap in interesting ways, and the more you know about how they overlap, the better you'll understand how emotion is depicted across cinematic genres. Horror, porn, and melodrama all fall under the subheader of body genres, which are, broadly speaking, genres that privilege physical sensational response. If you want to get technical about it, there are 4 things that really define the body genre. The first is an emphasis on emotions. Most movies follow a similar formula. There's a plot, goal, or character arc that's motivating the action. Body genres may still have those, but usually they're very shallow, trope-reliant versions of them. By contrast, the focus in body genres is on developing the core emotions: fear, sadness, arousal, not on narrative closure. That's why, for example, The Cabin in the Woods works as a commentary on horror movies. A set of stock characters enact cliché plots. But those clichés still engage viewers because complexity is not the point of a body genre. The point is to reinforce the emotional core, and you don't need extravagant plots to do that. It's not enough to just show these emotions, though. For body genres, it's equally important that the people watching them feel the same emotions. A character screams when the audience should scream, cries when the audience should cry, and, well, you know. I mean, a horror movie that doesn't scare you is generally considered a bad horror movie, right? But try to remember the last comedy you saw that actually showed characters laughing at each other's jokes. Most of the time, they don't even react. They just barrel on to the next gag.
You ever heard David Beckham speak? It's like he mouth sexed a can of helium. Think Ryan Reynolds got this far on his superior acting method?
The audience is supposed to laugh because the jokes are funny, not because they're mimicking the actors. When watching a body genre, you're meant to replicate the on-screen emotions. That's the whole point. They are spectacles of excess. Characters are overwhelmed with emotion to the point that they're incapable of rational thought, scared out of their minds, weeping senselessly, overcome with arousal. They scream, they cry, they moan, because they're too emotional to use language. Which goes hand in hand with a lot of gendered ideas about who exactly is allowed to feel strong emotions. Body genres almost always star women because we perceive emotional excess as the domain of women. Horror, melodrama, and porn are often stories where women are rendered senseless and powerless, entirely unable to reason because of emotion. This both reflects and reinforces the idea that women experience emotion to excess, and that men experience no emotion, 2 ideas that are as ridiculous as they are dangerous. Even though body genres are hugely popular, they're considered the lowest of low culture. It's part of the reason horror movies are rarely nominated for Oscars. Body genres are essentially, by definition, low quality. That's largely because they depict emotional excess, and because we perceive that excess as a bad thing, despite evidence that emotional release has a positive impact on health. Choosing to provoke that release by watching horror, porn, or melodramas isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's important to be aware of the messages, especially about gender, that you might be receiving when doing so. So how do these ideas transfer from cinema to video games? Well, body genres don't really exist in video games because players don't need to have emotions mediated in the same way that spectators do. When you watch a horror movie, you derive fear from identifying with the character experiencing terror. In a game, you are the character experiencing terror. As such, survival horror games are usually more visceral because there are fewer layers of mediation between you and the experience. Of course, you don't have to know any of this in order to enjoy horror, porn, or melodramas, but hopefully you've gained insight into how emotion is mediated. Even low-culture media contains messages about our society, and they're often overlooked or taken for granted. You don't always have to be analyzing these messages, but it's good to tune in every once in a while and ask yourself, what is this trying to get me to think or feel, or not think and not feel? Or you can just tune in next time and I'll tell you, to the best of my abilities, what hidden messages lie in the heart of the media you consume. The information in this video was derived from the works of Carol Clover and Linda Williams. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and like and subscribe to Polygon, and maybe share it with any friends you have that are into like horror or cultural analysis or cool jackets.